yeah, cool. He says, so how do you feel? I said, good. He goes, okay, cool.
Audio on one, audio on one.
So he says, all right, good. I think you got this. So let's talk about the choreography. And he wasn't kidding, because if you watch any of those videos, and I had to literally fill in for Jennifer Batten, and nobody had as much interaction with Michael, literally, than she did. And he wanted me to do all those things, you know, and it's tons of stuff. Not the least of which was like, I had to operate a pyro guitar, literally an explosive device that shoots like, you know, an explosive out of the headstock, and it's got like, I don't remember exactly what it was. It was like 3 switches. One switch ignites the next switch, which ignites the final switch, and he's going through it really fast. He's like, all right, here's a pyro guitar. I'm going to shoot this out here. This is your switch here, so you're going to wait for the dancers to pass by, go to stage right. You want to be careful at that point because the coils heat up here. You don't want to burn your leg. Dancers come back over. Go to stage right front, spin around twice, hit the second switch. At this point, you really want to be careful because, you know, it's whatever, it's loaded. And then you wait for Michael to come up. He's going to go to the front of the stage, and then you come over and spin around and aim the headstock out away from your face and hit the final switch because you don't want to blow your face off. And that's literally what he says. You don't want to blow your face off. So he's like, oh, that's all I heard. I just heard, this is a pyro guitar. Blah, 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 blah. You could blow your face off. And it was nuts. I mean, honestly, it was a lot of stuff to do. So it was, at one point I had to create this massive, like, poster-size sheet of paper that surrounded my pedal board that was like, you know, okay, song 1, verse, preset 031, pre-chorus, preset 057, chorus, preset 212, verse, preset 031, step up, spin around twice, wait for dancers, come back, bridge, preset 412, you know, and the whole thing was like that, and there was a lot of stuff to do. So it's crazy, and for me it was like, to get through that, really with no rehearsals and to just do it, it was really good for me, because now it takes a lot to get me flustered, because that was really terrifying, honestly. It was just, at one point I just remember thinking, you know, maybe they'll send me home. That might be a blessing in disguise. Maybe I'll fall down on stage and act like I got hurt. But it was actually great, and the gig, you wouldn't want to give up that gig. First of all, it paid ridiculous. Just saying, I'm not gonna. But it was a wonderful experience, and after a while, it did get more comfortable. Michael was a genius in a way that you can't even understand. True story. If you see the show, I don't know how anybody has seen the show, but it's wild, right? I mean, it's massive. 2 guitar players, 2 keyboard players, tons of backup singers, dancers, all kinds of stuff, flying around, props, all kinds of stuff. And I come in, and sometimes my parts are like this. I mean, it's literally like for the whole song, I might be. That's it. That's my part, right? And the guitar player, David Williams, the rhythm guitarist, made one of the most amazing rhythm guitarists I've ever heard in my life. The pocket was so sick. I used to just start laughing when next to him, because it's like, you think that you've got groove until you hear somebody that really brings it to another level. And his level was crazy. So Michael comes up to me after like the 3rd show, I remember. You have to really picture this, how much stuff's going on. And he says, yeah, you're doing a nice job. I'm not going to imitate his voice, but he said, you're doing a really nice job. And but if you could just, in song number 4, if you could just pull it back a little bit, you're just a little bit on top of the groove. And I'm like, really? You're hearing that? Aren't you in midair at that time? Aren't you like on someone's back or something? I mean, really, he's listening to everything. So I can imagine that it was a fun gig, but it's a little intimidating, because you know you have to step up. You have to bring it in a way that's not, it's not about virtuosity, it's more about just synergy and being really with the band and being connected to the music. And he was there. The other part about this particular gig was that everything was cool after a while, until they presented to me the blonde-haired wig that I had to wear. Evidence all over YouTube for those of you who don't believe it. Yeah, it's kind of like it's like a RuPaul-looking kind of situation, and it's weird because it was filled with fiber optics, so it really was part of the show, and the things light up the whole stadium, you know, during the Beat It solo, and it was really heavy because it was, again, technology wasn't quite as advanced then, so it's like this gigantic, heavy cable, like it looks like this for fiber optic. Every time I went out to do anything, it's like two people feeding this big hose, and then when I come back, you know, they're like reeling me back in. So it was crazy. But again, I wouldn't trade the experience for anything, and I always try to tell people, you know, when you're in a situation where you're not comfortable, instead of getting pissed off about it or getting irritated about it, you should be like, bring some more, you know, because the worse it is, the better it is for you, because it just makes every other situation that much easier to handle. I know us musicians, we like things, especially guitar players, we know. We like, I need that one pedal. If I don't have that pedal, I don't have that thing, I don't have that, you know, but sometimes you don't have that thing, and you still got to bring it. So it's a great experience, you know. Sometimes, again, embrace things that are uncomfortable, because it just makes the good times that much better. But anyway, I talk and talk and talk and talk. You guys probably have some questions you want to ask me or stuff you want to say, or anybody who wants to buy me a drink, that's cool too. He was first, and I'll go.
Good.
He's first.
Okay.
You got a drink? Vodka.
Sure.
Okay.
Your song's Drink Sanity?
Drink Sanity off of Uncertain Terms.
Insane.
Thank you.
Put all that together and then still find the space throwing the face over.
Well, first of all, thank you for hearing it that way. That was a difficult album for me. The whole album was difficult, and a lot of it went by in a weird way. My mother had a stroke during that time, and my father actually passed away from cancer at the same exact time. And so I was going through a lot of personal issues, and it was very hard for me to be inspired, because I had just come off the Introspection album, which was kind of a breakthrough album for me. And then a lot of this new stuff I was writing was sort of sounding like introspection, but I didn't want it to. So everything I was writing I didn't like. It was probably the closest thing to writer's block that I've ever had, because no matter what I did, I didn't like it. I'd have whole songs put together, and then the next day I'd listen to it and go, nah, I don't like it. That album was weird, and what I ended up doing was I just started pushing the envelope of my own thoughts. At one point, I did a thing where I sequenced drums, random patterns, and then wrote to that. So it's very hard to probably answer your question. I appreciate the fact that you hear it that way. But it is important to me with any song that I'm writing, any song that I put together. Honestly, the guitar playing is the afterthought. That's after everything. I really want to know that if I didn't even exist, people would still dig the song. I've never done it the other way. It's always like, all right, let's think about a song that's going to be great. Let's think about something that's going to move people. And then when that's there, maybe I'll put some cool guitar stuff on top, and that'll make it even better. But it's never, let me write a song that's designed around my guitar playing. It's never been like that. So whatever it was that you heard, it's coming from the same place that anything I write comes from, which is something I probably can't explain very well. Obviously, I can talk a lot without saying anything about it, but thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then you have a question.
Why'd you switch to Carvin?
Ah! Knew it was coming. You were the guy. How do I talk about this? Okay. It has to do with Guitar Center. Just being honest. I gotta be honest. So, I'm not, trying to dish you guys. It's nobody here, but the corporate world of Guitar Center is the reason. And so I'll give you the story. And I would like to give it to you because it's going to be on YouTube. I want to set the record straight because a lot of people are wondering what happened. And I sometimes see comments like, oh, there goes Greg with another company. And it bothers me because I'm honestly the most loyal person a company would ever get. But when circumstances take place that are out of my control, what am I going to do? So here's how the story goes. I'll try to make it quick because I know your lifespan on that only. A company called Laguna, which was under the umbrella of Guitar Center, was a company that came to be through a guy named Keith Brawley, who's a well-known luthier in the industry. He's worked at, I think, Fender. He's now at Taylor. Got a great reputation as a guitar designer and builder. And he was working the corporate world of GC, and he wanted to introduce this line called Laguna guitars. And it was a bunch of different models. So they sent me some of the models, wanting to see if I'd come on board to represent them. And I got the guitars. They were cool, but they weren't for me. Kind of like the DB Mark thing. I was like, yeah, it's nice, but it's not for me. About a year later, two new representatives that were working the Laguna thing called me and said, we understand that we sent you some guitars, you didn't like them, what's the problem? How can we get you to come on board? And I said, well, we need an instrument that I really want to play. And they said, okay, well, what do you need? I said, well, I need this, I need that, I need da. So they said, all right, well, you want to work with Keith directly on this? And I said, yeah, that'd be great. So I had a meeting with them, and the first thing I said, literally the first thing I said to them is, I want you to understand that I don't need any guitars. I don't need free guitars. I don't need any guitars. I've got more guitars than I have room for. What I want to do is have a relationship. That's how I see an endorsement deal. It should be a relationship where two parties come together in a way that's going to be mutually beneficial. If I can bring some credibility to the line, and they can bring some support for me, and we can just continually work together to make a product better and better. That's my idea of an arrangement. And so if I'm going to come on board, I want to design a guitar that I passionately and genuinely feel good about, and that I think people would dig, and that's it. And I don't want you guys pulling the rug out from under me, as has happened in the past. So let's do this, and let's be real, and let's get married. Let's do this. And they were cool. At first, it was cool. I worked with Keith. We ended up designing that orange guitar, the LE924, which I really liked. I thought it came out really nice. It came out exactly how I expected it to. It was exactly what I wanted. But then in 2008, there was the financial thing, and a lot of companies changed their policies. Suddenly there were different ways of doing business, and pulling back on inventory, and dismissing certain agendas that might have been more, that might have been more attractive a year earlier. And so, at the same time, Keith Brawley left. He got a job at a different company. So I think that GC was kind of looking at this going, we were, first of all, there's a little bit of a conflict of interest when a distributor is competing with their main accounts, right? So it's like we're putting out a guitar that's competing with Ibanez, competing with some of these other strong accounts that we've got. So there really just wasn't any passion. Once Keith left, there really wasn't anybody there that was kind of like, Laguna. So they just kind of discontinued it. And so I've really been, for the past 3 years, upholding the image of this guitar that doesn't really exist. And as many people have seen, it's not available. You can't get it. It looks cool, and here's a guitar that you can't have. Especially in Europe. And people have really had, they've had to do some crazy things to get a hold of that guitar. So the whole thing was just really kind of a corporate decision, and I just got stuck, holding the bag, unfortunately. So I'm not here to diss anyone, but this is the true story. This is exactly how it went down. And so now I'm working with a company that's, first of all, everything's made in the US. So it's really, really fun to know that stuff's not just going to be going through some factory, quick, boom, boom, boom. These guys take a lot of time with heat treating the neck and doing all kinds of, multiply stuff. Everything is quality, based on quality. They're one of the few companies that's actually raising the quality and raising their prices as a result of that, which I think people would prefer. I think people would rather pay more knowing they're getting something cool and genuine than, save $500 but get stuck with something that's not going to be cool. So their agenda is exactly like mine. They're really cool people. And again, we've been talking for about 2 or 3 years, and I've really just been saying, well, I don't want to do it yet because I just don't want to be perceived as this guy that keeps jumping around. But honestly, that's the story. So, Carvin, this guitar, this is a prototype. I'm going to be the catalyst for the first 24 fret bolt arm that they've ever done. And he brought it to my San Diego clinic 2 days ago, and it's sick. I mean, every now and then, I'm sure most of you have experienced this, where you play, you get a lot of guitar in your hand, but every now and then one lands in your hands, and it's like, whoa, everything's just right. The weight, the tone, the feel, everything. This guitar had that exact thing, and some of the unique features that are going to be about that. Again, it's not going to be super crazy unique, but it is going to be a 24 fret. It's going to be their first 24 fret bolt-on. It's going to have. We're going to work on the pickups. I am going to go back to the configuration I had with the Laguna, so it's going to be full-size humbucker in the bridge, squeezed together humbucker in the neck, 5-way super switch.
Rob, the guitar repair line 1, Rob, line 1.
Super switch with the different configurations, and we're going to have gold frets, and it's not a bling thing. It's going to be a certain type of metal they're using that's a mixture of various alloys that just comes out the color gold. The nice thing about this is that I actually really like stainless steel frets, but luthiers hate them because they're really, really difficult to work with. It's really hard. Every time my guy in Vegas, every time I'm like, yeah, I want to refret this with stainless steel, he wants to punch me in the face. He's like, well, whatever the price was, doubled, and so the nice thing about this particular fret wire that we're going to be using is it's definitely harder than nickel, because my skin acid or whatever it is, I really beat up hardware bad. I mean, really bad. Like bridges, pickups, stuff. Even after 1 month, people will be like, "Oh, that's a nice guitar. How long have you had that? 20 years?" I'm like, no, just got it 3 weeks ago. Nickel fret wire lasts. It honestly has about a 4-month lifespan for me until it needs to be worked on. The nice thing about the gold that we're going to have is that it's definitely harder than nickel, but it's not as unbelievably hard as stainless steel. So people will like it. Plus it looks really cool, so we can stick with the gold hardware. The other thing that's cool is I've gotten away from the Floyd. So this is a standard bridge, which I'm really, really happy about because I forgot how good it sounds. It's been so many years since I've actually played one. The sound is enormously different. And this particular bridge has a pretty thick block on the back, so there's a lot of sustain, and there's a quality that I can't really put into words, but when I play on some guitars with Floyds, there's this thing that I've gotten used to where you play a note, and there's a sort of background noise that comes with it. You don't hear it, but you feel it. And all of that was gone as soon as I went to this bridge. I forgot that existed. It's more, maybe it's psychological, but it was really, really pleasant to have that sort of response. And just hear the notes so separate and so... I don't know, I can't explain, it's just my own thing. But other than that, it's going to be, we'll probably end up doing alder. One of the things I want to say about wood is that people will talk a lot about woods and which combination of woods are better and all this. And honestly, in my experience, it almost has less to do with the type of wood and has more to do with the quality of the wood, because I've seen situations with boutique guitars, high-end guitars, 2 identical guitars hanging next to each other, identical twins. And one sounds sort of Les Paul-y and fluffy, and the notes are kind of big and thick. And then the guitar right next to it will be real sort of focused and immediate and fast, and they'll both sound great, but they'll sound like 2 different worlds. Same wood, same hardware, same everything. So you're dealing with Mother Nature. You cannot be guaranteed a tone from wood. And not only that, but there's different qualities of that type of wood. So for me, it's always been more the weight of a guitar that makes, when I can pick up a guitar and feel it and know usually that I'm going to like it, usually. Because if a guitar is too light, it's got a weird thing to it, and if it's too heavy, it's weird. So for me, it's more the weight of the guitar. The one thing I do like is maple fretboards, just because I like the fact that again, people will say that they're brighter than rosewood. I don't hear them as brighter. I hear them as more upper mid up front. So it's less of this and more of that to me. And I like that just because possibly, and it's probably because I don't pick that much, so I need something that's gonna kind of, kick.
Punch through.
But anyway, that's the long version.
What about
answer.
the pickups? You still going with the GH5?
I would like to go with the GH5, but I don't know that Jeff from Carbon wants to. We'll have to talk. We may end up just designing something that's like that with him, because they make their own pickups. And actually, I didn't even know this. They started as a pickup company.
Wow.
So
I didn't know either.
they do that. But so I think in their minds they would like me to stick with that, and I'm cool with that as long as we can design something that sounds cool. He's working really hard at. We want to have this by NAMM, so it's a big agenda thing for us. We're really going for it. Whatever it is, it will be cool. I promise.
All right. Cool.
Go ahead.
I just want to ask you, did you start with a particular genre? Because I noticed, like, following you, you played just about every genre. Was there a particular genre that you started with that you built on?
Not really. I have an older sister who's considered 7 years older than me, and when I was young, my parents had foster kids as well for a while that were all teenagers when I was like 10. So I was always surrounded by everything, from Sly and the Family Stone to Led Zeppelin to Doobie Brothers to the Beatles to everything. So there wasn't really a genre that I was into. It was more just I like good music, And it was weird as I got older and I started to realize people actually differentiate things. That was weird for me. I remember actually being, I remember I was listening to, I think it was the guy that produced Chic, what's his name? Nile Rodgers, yeah. There was a Nile Rodgers thing I was listening to, and I had just been at this party where it was like all these guys were listening to like Black Sabbath. And, I like Black Sabbath. And then I'm listening to this Nile Rodgers thing, and I'm like, oh, I love this song. And the guy, my friend, this is high school, my friend looked at me and was like, what do you mean you like this? I'm like, I like this. That's stupid. You can't like this and like that. That's stupid. Like, it was weird for me to think that people thought that way. That was very odd for me. So for me, it's never been a genre-based thing. It's always just been, when people say, what kind of music do you like? It's a strange question. It's almost like, what kind of music do I like? I like music that like feels good and sounds good. That's the kind. Good music is the kind that I generally like. But I guess to answer your question, back then, there was Don Kirshner's rock concert. If you remember back in the day, so we were kids. Me and my brother would pick up tennis rackets and jump around on beds, trying to act like, Sly Stone or Alice Cooper or something. And it was just that genre. It's just because one of the cool things about the '70s was that there was so much different stuff, and so all of that was an influence. The Beatles were big for us. Beatles were huge. Stevie Wonder was huge. Those two were probably the hugest for me, biggest, as far as just excessive listening.
Audio line one. Audio line one.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, mostly. I was just saying, like, as far as like if you let's say like traditional jazz. I know that you like that. And I wanted to also ask you, do you plan on playing like with Victor Wooten and Dennis Chambers again, recording with him?
Yeah, I would love to do that again.
Yeah.
The only problem is Victor is never available. I mean, he's never home. He's never available. He's always on tour, literally. And so every time I talk to him, I'm like, Victor, we should do something. Yeah, man, we need to do something. Let's do it. Victor, so what do you think next 6 months? Or you want to go out and do some? Yeah, unfortunately, I'm going to be out with so and so then. So it's really I have to just kidnap him, and then we'll go on tour. But yeah, at some point I'd love to do another album because I really like the way that one came out. Good.
I used to work in Italy in a record shop for many years, and I remember when the first album came out, and it was the wave of all the guitar players.
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of I remember I used to associate you with all these guitar players.
Right.
Mom was the first and all
Sure.
guys out there.
Sure.
Come to answer. I don't know. You always play more jazzy, Thailand fusion. I don't know.
I hear you. And again, thank you very much. When I got my deal I had been listening. You know, the chronology of my influence is that when I started playing, everything was, again, even from the time we were really young, me and my brother would write songs before I could even play an instrument. So like my brother would be singing a melody and I'd be humming the root note of the chord. And so eventually it was like my dad was like, you should learn how to play something. And so when we had these foster kids, there was a kid that played acoustic guitar, and he would show me chords like that. So that was cool. I did that for, when I was like 10, it was like, and I was happy with that. I was like, yeah, now we can sing and play, and that was cool. He went away, and then he came back to visit about a year later, and I'll never forget this. I saw him, and I go, let's play guitar. And so we start playing whatever we were playing. And at one point, he went like this. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. What was that? And he bent a note, and that to me was the coolest thing I'd ever heard. So for the next 6 months, I'm just... And through that, I kind of stumbled across, pentatonic scales, but it was inadvertent. And when I would hear a song on the radio, if a song sounded like, my ear could guide me to the... So I didn't really know what I was doing, but I knew when I was in the right place. And and then that's really how it started. Then it was like, then I started noticing lead guitar. I never even thought about lead guitar before that. I'd hear Led Zeppelin, and I'd be like, whoa, he's playing lead guitar. And then I would simulate that stuff. And it really wasn't until Van Halen came out that that was the first time I heard someone playing stuff that I didn't really understand. It, like, wait a minute, how's that happening? And that's probably where I started to get really more obsessive about it. So that's sort of the chronology. And once I got way into guitar playing, it started off more rock, but then suddenly it was like George Benson, and then suddenly it's like Albert Collins, and then suddenly it's like Pat Metheny, and then I just started loving music of all styles, basically.
Do you have a perfect pitch, and do you think it helps with vocal music?
I don't have perfect pitch. I think I have perfect relative pitch. So if I hear a note or an interval, I know what any other interval is from that. But I don't know if it helps. I imagine it can't hurt. I don't think it can hurt to have that. But I don't think I have perfect pitch. I can get close, but if there's no reference point and someone just says, "What's that note?" Usually I'll be within somewhere between it and an octave away.
But you're saying that you compose the music in your head, right? You don't need the instrument.
No, definitely not.
How do you write it down? Like you just
I don't write it down.
notations, or?
No, I just remember it. It'll be like I'm walking down the street and then I'll run home and have to find that, and if I'm being responsible, I'll at least record that. But I'm not really a chart guy. I'm not really writing stuff down.
I use my cell phone.
Cell phone is a good, today,
Yeah.
I have no excuses anymore.
Basically what you did with Justin Timberlake, right? He was singing and you imitated his voice on the YouTube video, like it was like sure.
Oh, that was a little thing that we worked out. He wanted to do an exchange with
But
me.
it was like improvisation or it's so.
Well, the idea was that I think he sings, and then I try to answer with something that's similar to what he did. Similar.
Like perfect pitch, almost.
I don't know if that's perfect pitch. Maybe. I don't think so. I think it's just kind of, being half decent at what I'm doing.
And also you were playing like with a lot of popular people, like Michael Jackson,
Yeah.
or like Rihanna. Whom you would like to work like in the future?
It's great. That's a really great question, because I have a lot of webcam students, and a lot of guys are really good. So they'll show up, and they'll ripping through string skipping arpeggios and all these crazy things, and I'll be like, I want to get a gig with Rihanna, and I'm like, well,
What about Moon Court? I'm sorry.
right, well, yeah, that's a different story. But the thing is, I'll say to them sometimes, you're not going to get a gig with doing it as a sideman And no one in that world is impressed that you can play 3-octave arpeggios. If you want to, you know, so I always ask people, they'll say, what can I do to make it as a guitar player? I want to make it as a guitarist. The first thing is, what do you want to do? Because that's a broad thing to say. That's like saying, I want to go to Europe. Like, yeah, where do you want to go? I mean, because if you don't know where you want to go, you're never getting on a plane. If you want to be a sideman for a big band like that, that's great. But that means that you don't really have to be focusing on string skipping and sweep picking. You got to be focusing on getting your tones together. You got to be focusing on delivering, you know, listening to the album. You have to be good at social interaction. You're going to spend 9 hours sometimes on a bus with somebody. You're going to be in airports all the time. You've got, your social thing has to be on point. You've got to be professional. If you're going to stay up and party all night and you know that lobby calls at 7 in the morning, you got to be there. You got to be paying attention to stylistically what's going on. You can't be dressed in, you know, looking like somebody that doesn't know what's going on in the current world of pop music. It's a different set of things to focus on. You know, your rhythms, chops should be good. But if someone says, yo, I want to have instrumental albums out like you did, Greg, and I want to do this, well then yeah, then you should be focusing on, you know, finding a voice, you know, getting some unique things, doing, taking some of your influences, and you know, you should be focusing on composition. If you wanted to get a gig on, say, like the Letterman show or some type of thing like that, you should be focusing on sight reading. I've told people sometimes, if you want to do that, I'm not the guy you should be coming to. You should learn how to sight read. You're going to be in a situation where you got to learn 20 to 30 new songs every single day. You should get your sight reading chops together, because you're not going to have time to be sitting there with headphones rewinding stuff to learn it. So the most important thing, I think, is to just be clear about what it is you want to do as a guitarist. And that's my recommendation. Pardon? Yeah, plateau is a word that's peculiar to me, because I've always evolved as a player, but I don't equate evolving with progressing. I don't necessarily think I get better all the time, but it is necessary for me to evolve all the time. I don't want to hear myself sound like I did last year or 2 years ago. I'd rather become, you know, I'd rather get into some Robert Fripp weird stuff and, you know, just do something that's different, or at least in the direction of different. So plateau, yeah, plateau for me would be like getting stale. Just getting stale, getting tired of hearing myself. I want to expand concepts, right? Executing wise,